Travis Wayne Goodsell. Okay, ex-Mormons. Another devotional for you. We know that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is not true. We know that they lied to us. We know the Book of Mormon is not literal history. And so it's a matter of getting the proper conclusion, the correct conclusion, and not just jumping to a conclusion just because it pleases us. If the church is true, we can come up with any conclusion we want because the church isn't true, as long as it confirms that. That's not sound. And it's what Mormons did, or do, to defend the church. They have their conclusion that the church is true, and so anything that they create to that end is perfectly acceptable. And so that kind of a practice, I hope you understand, is incorrect and doesn't get you to the truth. Now, most of you probably are like, I'm done with the church. I want nothing more to do with the church. I'm just interested in hearing other people learn what I've already known. And I'll correct them when they don't have the proper conclusions. Travis, Jewish. Not Jewish, it's Christian. They say they're Christian, therefore it's wrong because they claim they're Christian. Well, wrong conclusion. And so, when doing scientific research, which is what's supposed to be done for church history, and using the Socratic method for developing theories, it's important to know the facts. And with the misinformation that's going around, even among ex-Mormons, what you end up doing is excusing the current church by going after Joseph Smith. This is exactly what Brigham Young did to sabotage the church. Brigham Young claims that Joseph Smith is the founder. He claims that Joseph Smith is the reason for what he has no choice but to do. It's the law. And we know he lies. We know he's a racist, sexist, bigot, murderer, criminal, anti-Semite, neglectful of the poor. He's a horrible human being. We know this. So why then would you believe him? Or anybody who followed him to this valley? Why? Because they criticize him? Seriously. You cannot trust a liar. You cannot believe a liar. A known liar. You can't do it. And so any excuse to claim that certain things are true, it's an unsound argument. You're wasting your time. And so you have to do original research if you're going to know the truth. If you're just going to say, well, Joseph Smith's church is gone, and I don't care because the church isn't true, I just want to live my life. Well, there's problems with that too. Because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints wants to build their Zion, their kingdom of Zion. Not just, Temple Square and, have religious freedom. No, it's going to be far worse than this if they succeed. And if and when they succeed, it will have a direct impact on your life. And because you're not Mormon, it's going to have a very negative effect on your life. The church will seek revenge on all of you if they're not already doing things now like they've been doing to me. And so it's kind of important to know the truth, because it's the truth that will allow you to know what the church is up to and how to combat their lies when Mormons come a-spreading misinformation to you. You know, it's one thing to trick missionaries who don't know that were a former Mormon, and you pretend to be an investigator. You know, it's hilarious and funny, but it's another thing to know what the church is plotting to restore their kingdom and all of its atrocities that will have a direct impact on your life. And just like Mormons, those of you who are no longer Mormon do not fully grasp the horror that is coming. And so, how did this happen? What did they do? Well, it all begins with the rise of the church. Without the rise of the church, Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball would have never thought to infiltrate it to overthrow it. Ooh, jumping ahead too. And so we need to go back to 1826 on 9/11 in Canandaigua, New York. William Morgan was there at the lodge working with the master mason, whose name was Joseph Smith Sr. They were working on a book. William Morgan had obtained intel from the Illuminati that had infiltrated the Scottish Rites Masonry in America. Their intention was to destroy America, and it was planned for the complete and utter destruction and the creation of a new world order for the latter days. And so William Morgan wanted to write a book to warn America about this threat, because publication was the best way to get the information out. And you can't just do it in a newspaper article. It had to be a full publication to warn the people, because it's going to be a plot that's going to be set in motion 200 years in the future, right now. This is how I have been able to test my theory, is because it's happening. Things are happening and being fulfilled as the Book of Mormon told us it would be, and other scriptures that they were using, because they didn't have the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is exposing the plot. They used the Bible, specifically John's Revelation and about the latter days. And so Revelation chapter 12, they know what that date is given in Revelation chapter 12, or at least the verse 1 and 2 about the birth. It's not a birth, it's the beginning of the latter days. They know that date. They knew that date. They planned for that date. And the Book of Mormon has now happened because of that. And so as much as you have believed that the Book of Mormon was a fraud and plagiarized of contemporary literature, you are incorrect with your conclusion that it is a fraud and that it is just plagiarized, worthless material, just trying to make money telling stories that came off the top of Joseph Smith's head, Jr.'s head. You're wrong, because it doesn't explain the fact that Sidney Rigdon is the major author of the Book of Mormon. How did it happen? You know, how did Sidney Rigdon come in contact with the Smiths, and why was he the one writing it rather than Joseph Smith off the top of his head? Why not Joseph Smith Sr. off the top of his head? These are questions that you should be asking rather than just concluding hastily. And are you one of those who are resisting the fact that Sidney Rigdon's the major author and claiming that it was Joseph Smith who used a rock in a hat or off the top of his head, or which is it? Well, the facts are that Joseph Smith Jr. had nothing to do with the composition of the Book of Mormon. Regardless of all the theories that are unsound and need to be dismissed about how he had told somebody about Captain Kidd, and therefore we can find Captain Kidd influence in there, or in the story of meeting Moroni, you do know it's Nephi. These are things you're supposed to know if you're going to do videos, even to spread the misinformation. It's where I get frustrated with you, because there are certain facts that are not being told by critical sources. And so everybody who's doing videos about the church and church history, criticizing or correcting the information, should be saying Sidney Rigdon's the major author of the Book of Mormon. Now that doesn't conclude the Sidney Rigdon theory, which is kind of a malicious theory, that they were frauding people using Sidney Rigdon. Again, that's a hasty conclusion. Stick with the facts, assemble all the facts, then develop a theory, test the theory. If you don't test the theory, I can't believe you. I need to know that the facts are sound, that the Socratic argument is sound, so that your conclusions can be tested by me, independently, by going according to the theory you present. And if you don't make it testable, then I can't trust you. Can't trust you to be telling me the truth. But because I know how to do my own scientific theory development, I don't need you to tell me what to think. I do it myself. I've always been that way. Being born and raised in the church, people are telling me I can't have answers to my questions. Nobody knew them. And so I learned that if I wanted something done, and if I wanted to learn something, I needed to figure it out on my own. I needed to do it on my own. And so I learned to make reference books, to rely on reference books as the factual basis for developing theories. And so what happened was William Morgan was falsely arrested. They caught him. They were on to him. And they didn't want him to finish the book. And so it was necessary to rescue William Morgan, get him out of the country, because there were death threats. It wasn't just, you didn't pay your bar tab, we're going to put you in the poor farm. No, this was a malicious intent to lock him away forever so that the book never gets published. And so the Batavian Press with David Miller, I think it's Daniel Miller, trying to guess what his name was. It's David Miller, had fronted William Morgan the money to work on it. And he didn't work on it at home with his family. He was over in Canandaigua at the lodge with Joseph Smith Sr. working on it. And so it's clear that Jr. was aware of the information on the book, because he was used as the front person for the bringing forth of the Book of Mormon and the start of the church, rather than Hiram, who was a member at the lodge up in Palmyra. And so even though Hiram was also made a prophet, seer, revelator with Joseph rather than Samuel, who was in the high council with his it was, I think Senior was also in that High Council, while also the Patriarch, but Hiram became the Patriarch after the death of the father, not Samuel. And so that you'd have to develop a theory to explain why. And when you learn that Hiram was the one who was educated at Dartmouth, which was where the doctor came from that helped heal Joseph Smith's leg, rather than shopping it off and refused to give him alcohol. Don't give me alcohol, it's against the word of wisdom. But you notice how this church loves to embellish that story, make it about the word of wisdom, when Joseph Smith hadn't even organized the church yet, let alone the word of wisdom was just that, word of wisdom, not a commandment. It was Brigham Young who would turn it into a commandment, even though he was making breweries and growing tobacco so that they could be sold at the Regent Street brothel. But anyway, learning the true history of the church gives you a better understanding of the background, I hope, just with those factual information in and of itself. And so it was up to Joseph Smith Sr. to finish the book, as was his duty with the book that the Batavian Press published after William Morgan's disappearance to try to recover some of the lost money they invested in him for. That's why they did it. And so we find out that a Master Mason's duty is to care for the brethren of the lodge. And in so doing, he's responsible for finishing the book and getting it published. And thus the Book of Mormon. And so the Book of Mormon is a book of revelation, like the Book of Revelation. They wrote it in the learning of the Jews as a manner of prophecy for last days revelation, because that's what the enemy was going to do. They were going to use the timing of the Bible with the star dates for the latter days to fool Christians into thinking the latter days are upon them, and then they're going to destroy all of Christianity because no Jesus. And then they'll get back for what Christianity had done damage to the world for. And if you're unfamiliar with the damage, the Spanish Inquisition, or Monty Python and the Holy Grail, if you don't understand the Spanish Inquisition. But these are things that you need to know if you're going to understand correctly the Book of Mormon and what it's trying to warn you about. That it isn't a fraud, it isn't just plagiarism for the sake of plagiarism to make money. They had no intention of making money. Their primary focus was warning the people. And because Brigham Young was part of the enemy, along with Heber C. Kimball, it was their intention to infiltrate the church, be the ones to spread the word about the Book of Mormon as Christian literature with Jesus. That's not Jewish literature with the Jewish Christ, who would be a mortal human being with mortal parents. Because the Knights Templar of the Yorkites of Joseph Smith Sr. likewise, the Holy Grail, the bloodline, not the Immaculate Conception line. And so everybody knows Constantine created Christianity, and that became the great abominable church, wreaking havoc upon human beings. And So the Book of Mormon is talking about Brigham Young infiltrating his church, rising up in numbers because he's preaching, converting the enemy to the church. I found the church that was going to expose us in Canandaigua on 9/11/1826. We found them. Let's get them. So they brought in what became known as the Danites into the church under the leadership of Brigham and Heber C. Kimball. And they were the ones committing the crimes, getting Joseph Smith framed so that he would get locked up in jail and that Brigham and Heber would then take over the church in Joseph's absence. Oh, they're such good guys. Yeah, and so if you fall for their trap of blaming Joseph when he was the victim of a fraud by his own people, who are the secret combination, seeking to overthrow Joseph Smith, then you're playing right into the hands of Brigham Young. You've been fooled by Brigham Young. This is what he did this for. He's pretending to be on the side of Joseph, and he's going around lying to people about the church and the name of the church, and that it's Christian and not Jewish, and that it's Jesus and not Emmanuel of the Jews. And so in 1838, Joseph Smith had had enough. Condemned the apostles for spreading the wrong word. And yet you see from the Joseph Smith papers that Willard Richards still was covering it up. He put the name of the church that Joseph Smith had put, the Church of Latter-day Saints, and added Jesus Christ. And so now, instead of Emmanuel and Father and Son Amen for the first vision, it's now Heavenly Father and Jesus. Of course, Brigham Young said Heavenly Father was Adam. But the second vision is now changed to Moroni. Because they didn't want to have Nephi in there. Because if Nephi's in there, people might figure it out. Because what does the Book of Mormon say about the name Nephi? It became the name of the kings. And there's 1st Nephi, 2nd Nephi, 3rd Nephi, 4th Nephi. In the Jewish version of the Book of Kings, instead of 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, it's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th Kings. This is why Joseph Smith Sr. had rewritten 116 pages for that reason, to draw your attention to Nephi being the symbol of Emmanuel, the human bloodline who would be the Christ. And hopefully you guys understand the difference, that Christianity created a one and only one Christ, whereas all other religions prior to, any king was a Christ, because they were anointed. That's the Greek word, christen, anoint, Christ. And so the Catholics screwed that up by making your christening at your birth a sprinkling of water. Not even in oil, and definitely not an immersion in water for baptism. So yeah, the Great and Abominable Church screwed things up for the branch-offs that occurred after it was destroyed and shattered into over 1,000 pieces of Christianity. And so I hope now you understand. They knew the enemy was out to find them. This is why they had to have somebody else work on the Book of Mormon, This is why Sidney Rigdon joined in December, not immediately. They had to arrange plausible deniability to get him the Book of Mormon after it was published, so that he can then claim that he knew nothing of it in the first place. Oh, Book of Mormon. Well, this is great. Isn't this great, guys? Hey, let's go become Mormon. And then he gets paid for what exactly he wanted to do after leaving the Campbellite Church? Incidentally, in the Book of Mormon as well, he was able to put his religious rituals for the sacrament and laying on of hands, and so, yeah, he was able to be well compensated for his work, even though it was for projects that he wanted to get done rather than actual money payment. But going with the Smiths, he was taken care of as Joseph was, so they can do the work. And so I hope you understand how you need to stop playing into the church's hands. Because if you continue to believe the misinformation that it's all Joseph, you're going to not be able to convince Mormons. Because the current church is able to claim, well, we no longer do that. We're good now. And that's supposed to make you feel guilty. You had all those primary songs that made you feel good. You had the Mormons that were good to you until you left. And when your life gets hard, you think, maybe I can go back to the church and they'll forgive me and they'll take me back. And you forget the core problem with the church, that it lies to you. It cannot tell you the truth. Ever. Everything that they say is a lie. Because it's not the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as they claim Joseph was. And if they would just come out and confess, we're not Joseph's church, and so in order to tell you the truth now, we're going to create a completely re-gutted church that does away with all things Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon and his works. And we're just going to stick to the Bible, the words of Jesus, so that we can legitimately claim to be the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They won't do that, will they? Because it means that they're just another Christian church. And so why join the Mormon new neo-Christian church when there's already others that people are already a part of? Why would a Baptist want to now leave the Baptist to join the new Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Now that it's done away with the Book of Mormon, done away with Joseph Smith and all of his writings, they'd have no reason to. So, yeah, it's a kind of a ridiculous thing to do. And so that's why they won't do it. They keep Joseph Smith to perpetuate the lie about Joseph Smith. And so if you keep attacking Joseph Smith, the church is able to claim that you guys are the bad guys for, denying them their religious freedom. When you should be saying you lie about Joseph Smith. That needs to be all critics' attacks on the church. You lie to us. Stop lying. And then they'll come out and say, we're not lying. Yes, you are. Here's the evidence. You lied. What? Because that's what Gerald and Sandra Tanner had succeeded in doing. They exposed the church as having lied to us. But they blew it when they imposed their Christianity into it? No. Because now the church can claim, we're just practicing our religious freedom. You're attacking us with your Christian beliefs. We're not your kind of Christian. And then we're supposed to feel sorry. Oh, we're the bad guys. Oh, we'll stop and leave you alone. To lie. Commit crimes. And so stop. Go after the church for lying. Focus all your efforts on Brigham to Nelson lying. And their sexism, their racism, their bigotry, their hatred, their anti-Semitism, their neglect of the poor. Keep hammering on those to destroy the church. Because the successful attacks where the church has made an effort to claim to change has been ordained women attacking the church for abusing women. And the church excommunicated Kate Kelly, the leader, but then after they got rid of her, they then changed. They allowed the garments to be changed so that women can expose more flesh. They allowed missionaries to now wear slacks. And so, yeah, that was the big thing of Kate Kelly's push, is that they wanted women to wear slacks to church, to cause a stir. And now the church has allowed it. And so that silences their argument, their rebellion. And you're not getting it. They're still sexist. Because what they don't want you to know is 17th of March, 1842, the document in the original in the Joseph Smith Papers. And so you need to push for the priesthood and priesthood office. But you have to remember, they're not the true church. They don't have the authority to form any organization, any quorum, any priesthood office. And thus, not for women either. And if they caved, it just proves they're not the true church, because that they've been wrong before. Just like with blacks in the priesthood. Just because they allowed blacks the priesthood in 1978 doesn't mean that they're now automatically true. They were false before. They're still false. They just tricked you into thinking they're no longer racist. And they still are. So again, you can't trust them. You have to go for a full knockout. A full blowout to convince every Mormon still in, to convince all ex-Mormons that the church can never be true no matter what changes they make. And if that's your understanding of what religion is, you've kind of missed the point. Religion is not something that can be created by the will of the masses. You know, it is, but it doesn't make for a true church. It just makes for a club, an organization. It is not a religion. And so any rituals seems kind of stupid in that context. But when you understand true religion, then you understand how ritual, correct, properly done ritual, is a symbol of the religion, rather than just ridiculous things that are never explained as to their symbolic meaning. And so, yeah, it frustrates me when John DeLynn was interviewed and asked, would you go back to the church? Well, if certain things were changed, yeah, but I don't think they'll let me. No. If they have to change, they're not true. You don't want to join. You don't want to rejoin. But that's the trap the church is setting for you as ex-Mormons. That you will go back if they make changes. Not all the way. They're testing you to see how far they need to go to trick you back. That's why they allowed for slacks. Not just to keep women in the church, but see if they can get more women back to church. Doing as little as possible over time, and a little more, and a little more. Then they come out with more news. Oh, look, we're working with the NAACP. See, we're not racist. It's a trap. It's a trap. Oh, we're building bridges with LGBTQ with an exemption clause that we don't have to follow the law and give rights to the LGBTQ. Again, you fall for it. But this is why they do what they do. To trick you. To say, hey, we're the good guys. Thus we must be true. Come on back. We'll take you back. Make sure you pay a full tithe. It's all a trick. It's a con. And if you're not going to do the research, if you're not going to trust the facts, you're going to be fooled. And so, yes, this is how we destroy the church. Call them out as liars. That they have no authority because they're liars. That they cannot be true because they're lying to us. That Jesus, regardless of whether Constantine created him or not, can't be true for their church because they lied. Because it means that they're claiming Jesus lied. That Jesus is the racist. That Jesus is the sexist. That Jesus is the bigot. That Jesus is the anti-Semite. That Jesus hates the poor. And we know that's a lie. Regardless of Joseph being a Jewish Kabbalist. If that's too complicated for you, don't worry about it. Focus on they can't be Christian because they lie. They're not conforming to the teachings of the guy named Jesus in the what's called Gospels. Usurped and replaced of the Jewish literature. So that's what you need to push. That's if you notice how I do my videos. When church news comes out with something, I go after it. No, you lie to us. This is what's really going on. They claim they're helping out in Ethiopia. No, Ethiopia is worse than what after the church had gone in. No, the church is not giving to the poor. No, this is what's really going on. No, the church is not teaching about Jesus. This is what's really going on. No, the church is not giving more liberties to women. This is what's really going on. And I bring out the core documents from Joseph Smith that testifies against the church. The Book of Mormon testifies against the church. They keep pushing polygamy. No, the Book of Mormon testifies against polygamy. Joseph Smith testified against polygamy. No, you have no claim to polygamy. You have no claim that Joseph Smith taught and preached and practiced polygamy. Only the liars tell us this. Lies. And we will not believe the lies. We will not trust the liars. So stop blaming Joseph. It's the wrong argument if you're trying to destroy this church. Because that's what they want you to do. Because they can claim to be the victims. You're persecuting our founder. He founded our church. He's a true prophet. And you totally bypass Brigham, who is the actual founder, who frauded everybody, saying that Joseph was the founder. And so then, when you see that the church is no longer doing what the lies about Joseph was, which was what Brigham was doing, then you begin to say, well, maybe they're okay now. Maybe I can join now. No, you still have to pay tithing. Don't be fooled. It's a trap. Do I need to keep going? Have you caught on yet? We're already at 41 minutes.